Back here on Motorsports Today, 88.7 FM, WRSU.org, always available on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Eddie Kalegi. Well, we've heard a lot in the NASCAR world, the racing world, these last 10 years or so about revitalization projects of past tracks. And a new one is on the line now. That is Mansfield Speedway. Former home of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series for 5 years, hasn't hosted any racing since 2019, but the Ohio track is making a comeback, and leading it is former NASCAR Cup Series driver Matt Tifft, who's joining us now. Matt, thanks for stopping by.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us on here.
So, Matt, I'll ask you first. You were born in Virginia, grew up in Ohio. Of course, you're very familiar with the facility in Mansfield. But what, besides the location, really drew you to the desire to want to bring this place back?
You know, the crazy thing is I grew up probably 50 or 45 minutes from the track, and I had never been there. I grew up in Ohio my whole life. I was born in a hospital in Virginia, but really 3 months old, I've been in Ohio the entire time before I moved down to North Carolina to go, pursue the NASCAR stuff. But, you look at that area, and so many people are familiar with the Mid-Ohio sports car course, and that is our neighbor, 15 minutes away. And you look at the Ohio area of Norwalk over there for all the NHRA stuff. You have Eldora to the southwest for all the giant events they put on. And, really, Ohio is kind of a sleeper racing state, and there's so many great cars and drivers and people that have come from that area. I mean, just the Mansfield Speedway, Tim Richmond was from just a few minutes away from there back in his heyday in the Winston Cup era. But, you look at this track and this facility, it was a over a $20 million project back in 2002 when they built this track. And as you mentioned, the Truck Series was there, and, economic downturn of 2008 and a bunch of stuff that went on to initially close the property. It kind of come back two other times as a weekly asphalt track, and then trying to make it into a big show dirt track. But, really, when we walk this property, it's kind of eerie, I'd put it at best, because you can see the bones of what was laid down there 20-some years ago, and how incredible this property can be. It's 180 acres. It is a racetrack, but we're looking at this as an entire venue between concerts, festivals, car shows, races. So, in today's age, to be able to expand and go where we need to from a business standpoint, we've got to think outside the box there. But just seeing the potential it had, what it used to have for, in its glory days there, we want to find a way in 2025 to revitalize that. And, we're an hour from Columbus, an hour 15 from Cleveland, and puts us in a really good location to, hit some large markets and bring in some race fans there.
100%. And of course, I feel like with racing, unlike any other sports, there are so many grassroots ties with people trying to continue the tradition of the sport, which I think has inspired many of these projects. I mean, we've seen Rockingham Speedway revitalized twice in the last 15 years. Of course, North Wilkesboro has made its big comeback, and now this. So from a point of preserving tradition for a facility that operated as a racetrack for half a century, how that inspired you as well to want to bring this place back.
Yeah, I think there's a big shift after COVID. I mean, we saw so many live events be so important. And, I'm only 28 years old. I very much live in the digital age and the social media era. It's what we do every single day. It's how we, billboards and stuff do things. But, you got to have the TikTok following. You got to have the Instagram following, the YouTube, blah, blah, blah. But the live event piece of this is still very much alive, and people still want to go and hang out and create that fear of missing out from going to an event. And that's where we're going to do things differently. Is the events that we're going to create are going to be very sensory, almost like you go to a Cleveland Cavaliers game and just nonstop action and lights and things going on. When you go to a local dirt track or something now, there is the traditional part of that, but I've rarely seen people be able to bring in that high production piece of it into racetracks nowadays. So like you said, there is the tradition of racing, and we want to continue that. But at the same time, we've got to do it to where, anybody who sees these events, it doesn't matter if they're a race fan or not. We want them to come out and have it as a date night, family night, a night to go out drinking with their buddies or whatever. Come to our place and have an unforgettable time, no matter if they're a race fan or not. And we're going to diversify events to where we can have that to whether they're a race fan, a concert goer, they want to go see a drifting event, things like that they can come out here to the track and and really create something special that hasn't been seen before on the short track scene.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question, Matt. Again, Matt Tifft joining us here on Motorsports Today. You mentioned, of course, it's going to be starting as a dirt track if the opportunity presents itself, maybe bring back the asphalt, but was reading an article from the Mansfield News Journal this week, and you mentioned how your wife Jordan and you are talking about how this is community, horsepower, and unforgettable events all year long. You mentioned concerts. What's sort of your vision to make this facility more than just a racetrack?
Yeah, so I mean, starting off on there, I know very much in the Ohio area, car culture is still a very big thing. We're just a few hours from Detroit, and between truck builds, car builds, the big drag racing scene around here, we know that not only just in racing, but in car culture itself, there's a lot of stuff around here that, people want to show off, and especially in the summer months, we have so many classic cars. We have so many cool builds of C6 Corvettes, whatever it might be, that, people just want a place to go race and try to go do something with their car build. And, you've seen every city across America have these stupid, street takeovers where you got the Hellcats and they're doing burnouts in the middle of an intersection or whatever. But that tells me that there's a hunger to go do something with cars, that car culture is still alive. We've just got to reinvent that wheel to where, if you've got a Charger, if you got a Mustang, a Corvette, whatever, that you can come to our track. You can come do, spectator drags against your buddy. You can go, do burnouts in your car during our shows. So we want to make it to where we open our track up to the public. It's not just the racers. It's where people can come in and do this. But like you mentioned, the concerts in there. We also want to do a yearly Christmas light show, very much like the Charlotte Motor Speedway, to where we have an entire 2 million light show to where you drive your car around the property, can go walk in the concourse there where it's all lit up, have the track lit up in there. And, we're looking at things too, like a giant, scoreboard on the back straightaway to where it looks like you're at a college football game. So we really want to diversify the content. We're also going to be creating our own racing series that'll be kind of Savannah Banana and Monster Dam inspired. So something completely never seen before in the motorsports world, just to lean into that family entertainment piece of it. It's not exactly the hardcore racer piece, but we will have regular racing there as well for a few shows throughout the year.
So you mentioned how when you have seen the facility in its current state, the word you used was eerie. And of course, we've seen pictures of like North Wilkesboro and Rockingham and how much work had to be done. My question for you, with the current state of the track, how much work, maybe compared to some of those other projects, has to be done? I mean, it hosted events back in 2019, of course, since COVID has really not been used at all. So just how much of an undertaking this truly is.
A lot. The easiest thing I can say is go to the Matt Tifft, MATT_TIFFT YouTube channel. This week we're dropping our first video of our abandoned racetrack series. So the whole thing with this, we want to be very transparent between how much things are going to cost to fix, the current state that they're in. But what happened in there was, obviously you have 5 or 6 years of the property sitting. That's going to be typical, roof damage, leaks, pipe burst, stuff like that, because it's not being winterized. So those are all normal things. But we did have another factor, which was in 2020, the track was deemed to be dead as a racetrack. The current owners at the time were going to sell it to make it into an industrial factory or warehouse or whatever it might have been. And unfortunately, the people who came into there a few years later, they did not sign on the property. But in the negotiations period, they brought in a bulldozer and knocked out the turn 3 and 4 walls. And over that same period, with it not being a racetrack anymore, they did sell the lights. There's 2 parts of the grandstands that they, nicely donated to the local high school down the road. So we went down from 7,500 seats to 2,400. The catch fence was out, the flag stands out. And when they knocked down the walls, of course, it created giant drainage issues in there. So I would say there's not one part of this track that has been left unscathed from damage here. So we have a lot, and I mean a lot of work to do. And even just to bring it back to what it was, without mentioning the price of the property itself, it will cost north of $2 million to bring this back to what it was and modernize it a little bit.
So, Matt, I got two more for you, and we'll kind of circle back to the NASCAR side of things here. Of course, you competed as a driver. You helped lead the ownership group with Live Fast Motorsports in the past as well. So you're familiar with where NASCAR stands. And I feel like as a consumer, the Truck Series, back when they raced at Mansfield, the first 10, 15 years of the Truck Series was a bit more about going to some of these grassroots smaller tracks. Then we saw Trucks and Xfinity tour a lot more with the Cup Series. We're starting to see the pendulum swing back the other direction a little bit, but do you see a world in the future where, say, the Truck Series can ultimately make a return? Of course, that's the dream to a place like this, or more grassroots sites.
I think for a little while here, we're going to be focused on our own events. So we are going to restore the dirt track for the foreseeable future. In order to put it back to an asphalt track, which I don't know if the trucks would be interested in dirt or not, because we could host a dirt race there like Eldora used to down the road. But just to do that for the infrastructure that's needed, to put the safer barriers back in, to do the asphalt, to do the banking, yada, 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 again, would be north of $2 million, maybe $2.5 million to do that. So that'll be the hardest part of this is in order to bring NASCAR back to the track, we would need a big contract with that in order to do it. But we're also very conscientious of the local racing environment. And the fact of the matter is Ohio is very much sprint car and dirt racing heavy. There are some great asphalt tracks around us, but for the most part, the local grassroots racers are dirt racers. And as we mentioned, we want to create our own series and car culture, shows and events there. But to have the Rule of Outlaws and High Limit Sprint Car Series, the Hell Tour, the Summer Nationals there come to our facility, that gets a giant draw from this area. So we want to be careful, though, because we do have fantastic tracks around us, like Attica, Fremont, Sandusky is around there, too, for the other side of it. Eldora, of course. So we want to be careful to see, where that fits in a schedule, because my goal is not to take away from those facilities. I mean, my thought is everybody who owns a racetrack should not be competing at this point because, it's I don't want to say it's a dying sport. It's not, but it's a very niche thing to where people are spending money on racing, and there's no reason to go put somebody out of business. That's not our goal at all. So we want to create something that's a little bit adjacent to that. But we do feel like there's room for a few big shows to come in and still support that. But, if those things happen and we can make the right deal with NASCAR, we'd love to entertain it. Obviously, the facility can do it. The fan base is still there. But, as you mentioned, the Truck Series and Xfinity Series are coming back to short tracks. The racing's better there. The local community impact is better. And, I don't think they need to go to 1.5 million tracks like they were doing. So I think they're going back the correct direction in that. And obviously Mansfield being right now that NASCAR has 0 Ohio races could fill a void in there. So we'll see how that goes.
Matt, last question for you. And you mentioned how it's a niche sport, but you're particularly interesting in that you're still in your 20s. You have raced for Richard Childress, Joe Gibbs racing the Xfinity Series. You've run a Cup season. You've helped own a team. And now you're involved in this track revitalization project with Mansfield. What is it about racing that just makes it so compelling to be part of your life? And of course, even when you're not driving in the car consistently now.
Well, it's just a very expensive drug addiction, pretty much. I don't know. I was looking through a 5th grade yearbook with my wife a few weeks ago, and, it said in there, what do I want to be when I grow up? A race car driver. What do you like to do? Watch racing, play racing video games. I mean, I don't know. I've never really had any, interest outside of that. My parents were fantastic business people. So really my interest had been business and racing. And so the more I can do in that space, the better for me. And I still have a huge passion for it. And, if I didn't have a medical event back in 2019, I'd still probably be in NASCAR, but I wouldn't have the opportunity to, own a Cup team and, be able to exit from that and own my own Speedway. So it's just very cool, to look at this. And even, you look at what Cletus McFarland has done on his YouTube channel and the DeSoto Speedway, now the Freedom Factory in Florida. There's just so many new modern ways that you can really monetize this, have fun with it, and make it different. And so the creative part of me is so excited for what that can bring for new fans and memories, and what that can be for the future.
Well, you said passion and creativity, both clearly on display with the revitalization of Mansfield Speedway in Mansfield, Ohio, being headed up here by Matt Tifft and his wife, Jordan. Matt, thanks so much for joining us here on Motorsports Today, and best of luck with the future of this project.